The following is brought to you by the Starfleet Podcast Network, SPN, The Spin. BigJ's Beef. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of BigJ's Beef. I'm Big J, of course, and I'm on the phone with Nico. So the first thing I want you to tell me, Nico, is why didn't you come here to where we could sit next to each other like happy-go-lucky people and talk about Star Trek Picard? Tell our audience how come you're not here?
My Star Trek shirt was dirty.
Okay, well, you know what I'm going to say to that? It doesn't matter. Okay, all right. You have more than one Star Trek shirt, and it being dirty, you didn't. I've got shirts here you could wear. Oh my God, that sounds like a flimsy.
Yours would quite fit the same as mine.
But still, it would. Okay, forget it. All right. I'm telling you. Okay, last week her phone's ringing off the hook while we were recording. This time she didn't want to show up because her Star Trek shirt was dirty. I don't know what I'm going to do with you. I really don't. I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, at least tell me that you watched the season 3 finale of Star Trek Picard.
Of course I did.
Okay. Wow, that's good. Because if you didn't, then we were going to have problems.
No, I even wrote down notes and everything.
Ooh.
And so we'll start with The Last Generation.
Okay, so let's start with The Last Generation. So before I go into now I don't want to say rant, but you know how I am. I'd like to get your thoughts on the episode and hear the notes that you took to see if what you saw and what you thought about coincided with what I saw and what I thought of.
Oh, you know I'm going to have a lot of beefs with a lot of things.
Oh, I think
maybe you should go first.
Maybe I should go first. Okay, all right. So I'll do that. I can go first, which I wasn't ready for. So now you put me on the spot and I'm just like,
Oh, I have mine all numbered and everything. Look at you, slacker.
Oh my God, numbered and everything?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so I think I really liked the episode. I loved it. It really felt like that this was, and I'm not trying to be a new Trek hater. I'm not. I like all Star Trek. I'm not one of those hashtag not my Trek kind of people. But now I grew up with this. Star Trek The Next Generation premiered in September of 1987. I had just turned 12. And so I spent.
You're a latecomer, late bloomer.
You're like a year and a half older than I am.
Yeah, but I remember like watching when it was the original series in like the original series, I guess reruns.
Yeah, we all did.
On television when I was 4 years old. So yeah, you're a late bloomer.
I watch. Okay, so you might have me there. My first exposure to Star Trek was 1982 with Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Then I jumped into everything.
I bet you missed the actual release of the Star Wars movie in the theater too.
Oh, you mean the one that came out like a couple months before I was born? Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry. I was able to be there. I don't know where you were.
What a freaking genius. So the point I was trying to make was that this really felt like a good bit of nostalgia for me because I grew up with The Next Generation, with these characters and their adventures, and it really felt like I was back there again with a great TNG episode with the Borg, with the whole conspiracy of how they were assimilating. And I guess the problem that I have with all of this kind of goes back to what I said before, if I recall correctly, was that if the Borg really wanted to assimilate Earth, destroy Starfleet, whatever it is, they could have done that. Why were they being so extra? Why did they not send a fleet of ships after them for this? But the way it was explained, at least the way I picked it up, was, if you recall, there was in the final episode of Star Trek Voyager. Now, for anyone who didn't see the last episode of Voyager, you're going to have to pause this, fast forward a little bit or something. But Janeway, the Janeway from the future, like poisoned the Borg Queen and the Collective. And now, had you seen that episode, Voyager?
I don't think
Endgame?
so. Or if I did, I just don't remember.
Okay.
My memory.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Because the Borg Queen in this episode of Picard, that was what she said. She was left at the edge of space, poisoned, and the Collective dying. And at first, I was thinking, wait a minute, what? And then I remembered, okay, that was from Voyager. So
it was actually Janeway and not Picard, because I kind of from what she said, I thought it was Picard, but okay.
But no, when she said you, I think that was
meant like humans.
Yes.
And Starfleet kind of.
Yes, that's right. So the problem that she had was Starfleet, which was a legitimate gripe because a Starfleet officer who was Admiral Janeway from the future at that point, did that. And the changelings, the problem they had was that the same thing happened with them. Now they were poisoned, but Starfleet gave them the cure. I don't really recall the nitty gritty details there, but the point of the matter is that these two species, they had a problem with how they were treated. And so really it was kind of like a revenge kind of thing.
Personal revenge though.
Yes. Yeah. So it was personal. And that was what I kind of started out having the problem with, is why all the subterfuge and the secretness. But it seems like it was because, especially on the Borg side, that this was it for them. She was just about the last one. The entire Collective had collapsed. This was like the last Borg cube, besides the ones that the Romulans had captured and had been on studying, as what was depicted in season 1 of Picard. And here was the other thing that I kind of thought, this isn't going to happen. This doesn't happen. But during the attack on Starbase 1, when the Titan is doing these strafing runs against the fleet, now, okay, yeah, right. That didn't really sit that well with me. I know it's a technical thing, but come on, really? That should not have been the thing. The Titan should have been wiped out within moments of that.
Okay, should I point out that you just bounced around? You messed it all up again.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, you said last time it was all my fault, but you did it all on your own this time.
Well, once you go in order, then we'll go in order. I'm just kind of giving some general stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, I did have something to add to that, but
all right, let's hear it. Since this is suddenly your show, let's go ahead and hear it.
It is my show. That's why they watch.
Oh.
So yeah, I don't know. I kind of think with that whole it being kind of a personal vendetta. I kind of feel like the Queen had seen Picard or Locutus as her only equal. Like she had never come across anybody else that she felt like was even remotely close to basically being a partner to her. So, I think kind of that whole, I'm going to go after your son, was probably a little too humanized for the Borg. I don't know. I mean, I'm having a little bit of problem with that.
Yeah, I think I can see what you're getting at there.
Because it kind of seems like in all the depictions prior, and I mean, I loved the episode, so don't get me wrong. I love Star Trek, but when we're talking about things see, now you've got me all of this nitpicky stuff. I used to be the person that just loved to watch the show for entertainment value. And now it's I'm like, oh wait, no, this is wrong. Wait, that's wrong. But yeah,
now you're a real Star Trek fan. That's what it is. Welcome to our collective.
Oh my God. So yeah, but I was really feeling like this whole thing of her really doing, she's trying to bounce it back and say, no, Jack found me because he's the transceiver is that right? Transmitter. He's the transmitter. and he, so yeah, I don't know, but here's the other thing I'm having a problem with. Not only her depiction of her being kind of overly human is, Jack, again, I know our little blip in our recording last time was where I was saying, he was an arrogant young man. And he's thinking, this queen has never dealt with me and I'm just going to run off and, go up against her and she's going to be at a loss. And so we kind of see a little bit of that play into the beginning of that depiction again. And then when they first show him, we see he's already been assimilated by her. And, so I'm thinking, wow, here he was, this young, 25-year-old guy thinking he, is indestructible, I guess. And he's so easily seduced by the queen with these assurances of the motherly love. And I'm thinking, no, wait a minute. Is that really did he cave that easily? Because we didn't see any of that, but he talks about a couple things. And the one reason I'm having issue with that is he has Beverly, he's been raised by this single mom and she's been there the whole time. So I wasn't really feeling like the seduction should have been that easy. And then also we didn't see it. So I kind of was a little bummed out that they didn't show us that whole scene prior to him having a little bit of a battle. It was like we just cut straight to and he's already plugged in.
Yeah, I thought it was also a little peculiar at how much he didn't resist. He welcomed it. He wanted it. And I know that he's a very heroic kind of guy. He didn't want people to sacrifice their lives for him. And he wanted to, I guess what he felt, do the right thing. But I was pretty thrown off guard by, he didn't resist it. He was just this is what it is. I'm going to be assimilated and I've got these voices, this collective I can be a part of. And he almost felt like, well, this was my calling, was to be the Borg king or whatever. Prince
would be more accurate, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, be the Borg prince.
The thing is, though, I've got to disagree on that, though. I mean, okay. I feel like the queen capitalized on his weakness of feeling different and the loneliness, and him saying that he was alone. But I guess he had been hearing voices, I think, didn't he say since he was a young child?
Yes.
Okay. So he's had these visions and all this stuff wasn't new. So I kind of think about the little tween kids that I work with and the high school kids and everybody in between. Mm-hmm. And that's really, I think, the biggest time when, I know he's genetically and chronologically past this, but it almost feels he's this younger junior high kid who is oh, I'm so big and bad. But then as soon as I meet up with this group, I'm sucked right in. And he talks about, being euphoric and that, he's just, meant to be part of this collective and its perfection. And, now I'm wondering though, because, even his dad, Picard, kind of pokes at this when she's telling him how this has all occurred because we didn't see it and he didn't see it. But I'm wondering, is Picard right about it just being the queen, or inside that green, I don't know, kind of netherworld? Mm-hmm. Or is it really, are there really other trapped souls in there that are kind of calling out to him? And again, I feel like that's almost the supernatural part of this that I'm finding is a little strong for being believable. We had kind of talked about that before. So I don't know. I'm not sure how to take that.
So you're having, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the issue that you're having with that with the internal struggle that Jack had with the collective and how his father tried to help him. Just that whole artistic license of same thing that happened with Data and Lore, where you feel like you're watching this stage play of them, but it's in their head. It's not. It's kind of like we're visualizing something that is happening mentally or emotionally.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like the arrogance of Jack, and then cut scene, and now Jack is completely assimilated. I mean, I didn't expect anything different, but it just seems like I'm a little disappointed we didn't see kind of any of what was going on with that. But I do feel like, and then, when she pulls up and says, like Jack can just leave by himself, like Picard can't come in here and unplug him or he's going to kill him. I was having a little bit of trouble with that because, Picard just goes and sticks the plug into the side of his neck, and then he's just now there, and he enters, and then, and then Jack helps Picard by ripping the plug out, and he just like pops back out to reality.
He could have been a little more gentle. He was just like,
well, yeah, besides the kind of roughness there, I'm like, wait a minute. So how is it that if everybody's trapped with Queen and assimilated in there, how is it that Picard, I don't remember exactly how he was freed from being Locutus the first time, but how is it like literally Jack just chooses, like, I guess, I don't know if it's something with that genetic altered DNA, that he is not so powerless that because he's that transmitter, that he can somehow, like, that doesn't make sense to me, in what I know of like transmitting and receiving and all that. I mean, he's definitely receiving from the Queen, and he's transmitting that signal, but like to enter and exit out of that realm and just be like, oh yeah, I don't want to be here anymore, and then I'm just going to unhook Dad and Dad's fine. I was having like, how are they unplugged? How is Picard especially unplugged by Jack? And there's like no brain damage. Like he's just perfectly fine,
Of course there's no brain damage, right?
Okay, so we are talking about that synth body. That's one thing I keep forgetting.
Yes.
But still, I just don't understand how Jack like is assimilated. He just gives in, and then Picard's having a hard time getting through to him, and he actually literally has to go in there and really like get some sort of deep down, like, genetic inherited, like animalistic need fulfilled of family for Jack to like really realize kind of where he is, and like, oh yeah, this is not, these are like either trapped spirits or like, I'm really, yeah, I can hear things, but there's really nobody here. Like, and if she was in the process of dying, then I don't know if she would feed off him eventually or how that all would look, but I just was thinking there's like no good outcome to this. Like, I don't see that if she was poisoned and she was already decaying, how would he not become infected then?
I think you're right. I believe that was
so was she just like, I'm just going to take him with me?
That's a good question. That one I couldn't answer, but you're right. This seems like whatever the Borg have is some kind of communicable disease. It's like they were dying of I don't know. Whatever. Well, you think
about it. I mean, but they're collective, right? So
yes.
It's like the beehive, and it's literally like if you go outside and you bug spray on your beehive, like literally it's going to spread to everything there. So I mean, this almost, we're talking about, even though the collective is individual souls, they're all plugged in together. So it's almost like the data lore plugged into the main,
which was a great idea. Plug them into the ship.
Yeah. So I mean, I can understand. And that's why I'm saying, like, when I was watching where Jack was in that kind of mental, whatever area with, all the green souls or whatever's going around him, kind of that mental space, I'm thinking, because I almost was visualizing it like as a holodeck too. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not right. But, I'm thinking is he going to sustain her, or is she just going to spread her poison into him? Like, I just was like, something at some point, or are these souls just going to, dissipate there? I didn't see it because there was still some life to some of those Borg, as we saw Worf go into the main panel, and he kind of reactivated a few of them. So there was a little bit of their physical autonomy through those bodies left. But I was like, is that why there's still things floating around in there, in the collective? Because those guys were still kind of just a little bit alive. Mm-hmm. And so if they were completely dead, then I don't know. I was really struggling with how all of them were still in there and in her mind. So that was a really good question to see if she somehow was making a hallucination kind of thing, or it was her memory or something else that she was projecting into Jack just to trick him.
I think that it was a whole lot of stuff that, to me, it kind of seemed like, all right, we sort of stumbled ass backwards into getting this guy to come to the cube, seek out the queen, become the prince of the hive, and whatever it may be. I really think that he succumbed to the dark side probably a little too easily without a whole lot of fight. But you know what? That's just me. So, but I definitely, that was great. I really liked the stuff you said there, made you really think. So I wish I had a copy of your notes so I knew what was coming next, because that's got me a little worried now. Like, oh wow, she's gonna be sharp. So now all of a sudden you like doing this. Before you're like, I don't want to do I don't want to complain about stuff.
It did not help that the very first episode I had not watched when we were trying to talk about.
Now you're hooked.
Well,
I told you.
Okay, so I like to talk, so I could always find something to talk about. But I got to talk about cats last time.
No cats. Tired of talking about cats.
Hey, I actually found some cat shirts that were Star Trek, and I was like, it was too small in my size, and I was really bummed. So,
oh man,
let me tell you, that just saved you from an extra cost right there because it didn't fit. So I don't know. I was thinking about maybe getting it and cutting it off and. Mm-hmm. Putting it on the back of a jacket.
Make it a midriff.
That might still happen. I mean, I can creatively work around that kind of thing.
Okay.
So just so you know. All right. Anyways, with the Borg again, I had another little beef with them. So yeah, we talked about the signal interruption. And so basically there's a signal interruption. And then right after that, all of the young humans who have been assimilated say there's a signal interruption, continue with the directive. And my first question was how? Wait a minute. So at that point, then the queen, I guess, was still actually physically, this was right before the ship blew up, and then the ship blows up. So she did have, the queen was the signal control. And I'm like, did they just suddenly, deactivate? How is that possible that she blows up and they're still going? I get that they said that there was she was I mean, I know Jack was broadcasting too, mm-hmm. but he was already pulled out of the system by then. So I was a little confused by that.
Well, he was pulled out, but there was still that the thing in the middle of the Borg cube that was still doing its transmitting thing. And while we're talking about that, by the way, I should tell you, I loved all the visuals of the Millennium Falcon going all through the Death Star on its way to the primary reactor Oh, no, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I meant the Enterprise D bobbing and weaving through the Borg cube to get to the center of it to destroy the thing. I would have to say I was extremely impressed by that, because you know how big a Borg cube is, right? Well, you know how big a Galaxy class starship is. And now the thing that I thought was, and it handled like the frickin' Millennium Falcon. I thought that should handle more like a tour bus. I don't know how it was able to do all of that, to be that nimble.
Well, Data was driving, so I mean, you got to give Data credit. He's a first-time driver. Like, I mean, do you see like student drivers go out on their first time and they're driving like they're race car drivers, professional stunt drivers? I mean, that's kind of what Data was. So I did get a pretty good laugh out of all that, where he's like, I think I can do it, and they're like, all right, we're just going with Data's gut, you know, like the humor in this episode was really good. There was several times that I was just cracking up about stuff.
Oh, God, it was funny. Yes. And well, but when a little bit later after that, when Troy ran over to get into the pilot seat, I said, no, get her away from that. The last two times she drove an Enterprise, she crashed both actually. And so I just
driving the shopping cart in the grocery store, isn't it?
Oh, when you tried to kick me, hit the shopping cart and like broke your frickin' foot, that's what you get. That was exactly what you get.
You're supposed to be spilling all of my secrets on the show.
You brought it up. You went there. I'm sorry. Nothing. I can't help you.
But and what about when they, like I was having issues with them bringing the 20-year-old refurbished ship out and just pushing the button and them going off into like battle. But here we have a cook as the pilot, and he's like, I haven't even finished school and I have no experience, and now I'm going to go straight into battle flying
on
mode.
The Titan.
On the Titan. So that was twice that I'm like, we have student drivers here who've never driven, and you're telling me that they are driving like they are professional stunt drivers or experienced drivers. So I know that was like a little nitpicky thing, but I was kind of like,
you're right. I got beef
I'm
with
not
that.
buying this, because I know I'm like in the process of doing driver's ed again for the second child.
Oh, God.
And yeah, that's what I say. Like, you're pulling my nails out of the dashboard. So I'm just feeling like I kind of like, I'm right there, I just was really strongly going. And see, that's the thing. Probably a lot of people aren't going through that. So they're like, it might just pass them right by. But it was like, the cook's like, I'm a cook. I didn't even finish school.
Yeah.
You want me to be the pilot? And they're like, you know what? It was kind of like the last time where they're like, we have no options. Yep, you're it. You're our pilot. Yep, you can do it.
It's kind of like how everyone thinks that if they're on a plane and there's an emergency and they had to get into the pilot seat, every one of us thinks that we can fly that bastard and get through it.
Like Speed, where, Sandra Bullock just jumped in the driver's seat. She could automatically drive that big old bus.
Are you kidding me? If I get into a car I'm not familiar with, I can't find the windshield wipers.
Well, you tried driving a stick shift too. If you don't know how to do that,
I've driven stick, but the thing is,
I'm just saying,
I practiced.
Nowadays, that's, like,
you don't just jump in and do it.
Right. Like, let me tell you about my little experience. I think I killed the car like 6 times at a stop sign the very first time I took the car out to learn how to drive a station.
I could see you're probably trying to go from 1 to 4 at a stoplight or stop sign.
No, I think I was just trying to get it to like go.
Folks, let me just tell you.
It was a little embarrassing.
Anytime I am in a vehicle with this person, I think this is it. I'm going to die. I take out my phone. I take out my phone and I record the last message to my kids and my family, because this maniac, Nico, cannot drive. You're not in a Fast and Furious movie.
Okay. So, but here's the thing, like when you've lived out in like Arizona, driven in California, and it's like the speed limit is like base speed limit is 75.
Okay.
And everybody else is driving 100 and you're going like 75.
But you do this shit in the suburbs. With the speed limits, like
there's nothing there. I don't know. Everybody's
playing children.
Everybody drives like snails here. I just can't handle it.
Really?
Okay, so let's move on.
All right, let's move on. Sorry.
Okay, so my other problem with the whole like signal interruption with the Borg was like, so they pull Crusher in, and she basically gets this chance to be admiral because she's now I was going to say funeral director for a second. No, she was the person who could figure out how to purge the infection of the Borg genetics and basically like just deactivates it. Or, I mean, I was kind of like really stumped by that whole thing. And then apparently she was able to come up with all in that whole same thing of doing that miraculous thing. She was able to also be able to figure out how to do that scanning for other private anomalies, which was allowing them to find all of the changelings that were hiding. And I'm like, wow, like I don't think Einstein or any of the other people, Edison, kind of stumbled across like major things like together. I mean, it's kind of like, so those things saying she did two of them all at once. And it was like, wow, just in the nick of time. And that was a little bit hard for me to swallow.
Do you have a problem with her getting the promotion, or just that she was able to do it?
No, just the scientific part of it.
So why though? Why would that
breakthrough of two major breakthroughs like together all at once? I mean, now if they would have said, oh yeah, she had been working and she figured, it was, months or whatever down the line, and she figured out how to do the transporter thing, then I get it. But it's like, she's a medical person and I don't think she's got the IT background. And that seemed to me, because it was through the transporter, that it was a lot of more technical than she might have been able to do on her own.
Well, I'm sure she had help.
That's not what they were saying. So, yeah.
Well, I don't think that was a solo effort to do. I'm sure that Data helped. I'm sure that Dr. Bashir probably assisted, and he's an augment. So that he's going to have knowledge that would become helpful. The doctor, if the holographic doctor still
erased.
Huh?
I thought he got erased.
The doctor?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
There may have been an episode in Voyager where he did, but they had a backup. I don't know. There was always something.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have a problem.
You want to hear my other beef?
Oh, wow. You got a whole plate full.
I told you. I told you. You've turned me into this nitpicky, crazy lady.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. This is what you've done. You've warped me now.
Yep.
So my other thing, which I was like really questioning, was again with Troy and Data. And it was more on the side of Data, but like, so I know that he had a feelings chip put in there.
Right.
And so of course, like when he starts out his whole like impossible maneuvers, driver's ed as the stunt driver experience, we see him smiling everything, and Troy's like, why am I sensing enjoyment? So we definitely know where it's coming from.
Well, but let me just pause you real quick. I'm sorry. So the emotion chip he got during the events of Star Trek Generations, and that emotion chip stayed with him until he was destroyed in Star Trek Nemesis. But the emotion chip was not. It was not needed for Data because he was put into basically it's like a human body. I mean, it was essentially, sure, it was a synth body, but it's very much like with Picard. Picard didn't suddenly lose the ability to have emotions or feelings or anything like that just because he was put in a new body. So that's
talking about two separate things, because we're talking about Picard, who started out as a human, and we're talking about a synthetic being that started out as a android.
Yes, android, but then he got the emotion chip, but the emotion chip isn't a thing anymore.
Okay, so but here's my problem though with that. Okay, like two problems. First of all, well, the first problem was like, how is Troy going to pick up on feelings? Like, I get that, like, we talk about, when kids are little, they don't really understand what they're doing. And so kids go through that whole thing of imitation, and they like imitate other people, and they might have emotions and not know names for them and things like that. So I get that Data's been through some of that, where with the chip, he was maybe able to like have some experiences that would bring him maybe an approximation of what feelings were like. But we're talking about something that I don't know if we're talking artificial intelligence that is continually learning and progressing forwards, but I guess I was thinking of the old Data. And I know that we've got multiple personalities that we have shoved into the synthetic. And I know that we've talked about a little bit about them combining. And he, in that episode where we see that he has kind of, I guess assimilated is not really the right word, but there's kind of that, it's kind of a conglomeration of the parts kind of coming together in bits and pieces and kind of forming a new whole. And he says, yeah, I feel different than before. So I get that, like, he's kind of having multiple experiences from multiple different personalities. And that kind of gives him like this, I kind of want to say like a backup memory experience kind of thing inside him. So he can kind of pull on those things to maybe, I mean, especially if Sung is in there, he was human. So maybe it's a little bit like Picard, but just that whole idea of, is he really truly having feelings, or is this more of like mimicry where he is imitating what he sees around him and what he can approximate by like deducing things through his AI system to be, this is what this might be feeling like?
I would have to say that if that is true, if that is the case, then the same would have to apply to Picard. They're both in bodies that were created by Alton Soong. They're both synth bodies with positronic brains. So I don't think that Data is mimicking.
To continually evolve, correct?
I'm sorry, what?
It's a system that's set up to continually evolve, to progress. It's constantly learning things all the time, right?
I yes, but only in so much as like you and I constantly learning. But we're human. We're not AIs.
Right. See, and I think that's what separates humanity. And I mean, that he's always said that's his goal, is to be human and humanity. And he even made a comment about that, which I'm going to kind of get to in a minute. That's why I'm saying, like, we can have computers that can like learn, like you can take a program and, you can take like a chess program and you can tell it, here's the rules. And then it can go through so many trials and it can like come out with, okay, I see how I lose. I see how I win. And now I have strategy. Now I can win more times. And that's kind of where I'm still struggling with this, even though Soong might have had some sort of AI I don't know. I mean, we're talking about technology we don't have yet. So maybe that's where my interest is.
I think that is, we're trying to take what we know now and the sum of the knowledge we have, and we're trying to apply it to things that we can't wrap our heads around. We just don't have the concept to be able to know what that is or what it's like, because it's just, I don't know. We're trying to take what we know now and apply it to to these other things. Like, for example, right now we have no concept of what alien life would be besides us, what it would look like, how it would communicate.
Come here.
Huh?
I said, look in the mirror.
Ooh. Okay, let's see. How do I mute your microphone from here? I can't believe this.
That last time, don't cut me out.
No, man, just burning me. What did I do? I didn't do anything.
You bumped the recording button on the keyboard last time.
That was an accident.
Well,
that was an absolute accident. What?
You were in charge.
You were in charge of all the. All right. What other beef do you have?
Okay, so I'm still on the whole data Troy thing. So once again, like we pulled data again, and while he's talking about, these feelings, and we see that, the part of where he's expressing one feeling, enjoyment, during the driving experience, the flying experience, I should say. And then we see where he's talking later, they're doing these therapy sessions with Troy, and he's apparently like me, he likes to talk. So he's going an hour past, and it's basically a daily thing of therapy with Troy. And when he's describing how he's coping and experiencing things, we pull at that mental health piece again. He really is depicted basically as a bipolar individual who is back and forth and up and down, and I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm confused, I'm angry, and he's just like, he has no stability within his experiences of feelings. And I'm not sure that I would think that I guess I don't like that depiction, just because I don't think, like when children are young, they don't experience everything all at once. And it's not like they can have, upset and then kind of okay. And that's kind of the two things, babies cry or they're okay, and I don't see, I guess, a progressing, evolving android being quite so unstable with newfound integration of feelings, I guess. Mm-hmm. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. It was kind of a nice spin back around to kind of try to explain something, but it just bothered me that was kind of the depiction that they were going for. If they kind of would have stretched it out a little bit more. And then I'm trying to figure out, though, with Troy, I guess my other issue was when she's had been sensing that enjoyment, how is a betazoid going to actually sense feelings? Once again, I'm going back to data. Is he actually having feelings? How can he transmit out feelings to a betazoid? Like, I just don't. I don't know. I don't know what her abilities are specifically, but that just, I really feel like that is probably beyond the scope of her species.
I wonder, is there room for interpretation of she's not really able to sense his feelings in the betazoid way, but in how, like, for example, regular person, would you say that you can't read my mind? Well, all right, that's debatable, but let's just say that, okay, you're not a betazoid. Can't you still sense from me different emotions, even with not looking at me?
But you're a human, and here we're talking about this synth, and he's facing away from her. So she has she doesn't really have nonverbal body language or cues to pick up on. So, if she had been standing in front of him and had seen him kind of smile and poking in on then I would have maybe bought that a little bit more, that she was kind of maybe empathizing what he was feeling more of than actually sensing. But yeah, so that was just my question, because I don't really know how that mechanism with her works. But I get that, like we had talked about, with Jack, we talked about that telepathy piece and, like him being a transmitter and all that. So I don't know. I almost wonder if that kind of was another part of how she saw what he had inside his head, but he didn't see, because he was like pushing it out toward her. And yet he was afraid to know for himself, and sometimes our mind blocks things off. I know when I was in a bad car wreck, like I know very little pieces here or there, fragments, and the rest is, just blank, because, I think my brain shut it out because it was so traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wondered though, if, I was really wondering about that whole kind of connection, because I don't think, like we said, we don't have that technology yet to have something like data. But also we don't have people. I mean, there's debate out there that there's telepathic people out there or whatever, clairvoyance or whatever else. And I mean, I don't know. I really think, like, in this situation, maybe she just knows data so well. These are the people that she had been on a ship with for so long. She knows patterns of behavior. And sometimes that's what I read off of you, is just pattern of behavior. You're predictable. And then I'm like, yep, this is what he's doing. So
can you see the look on my face right now? I bet you can.
I just
I'm so predictable.
Knife.
Mm-hmm. You just what?
I just told you too much, didn't I?
Oh, I thought you just said you opened a plastic knife. What? Someone took the knife out of the cheese.
Oh my gosh. No.
I guess, yeah. And that's the thing, is there's that predictability with people that you have that familiarity with. And you're right. Yeah, because I'm predictable, but
sense of humor, like there's a little more of his attempts at that. And that's kind of where I felt like maybe there was a little bit of the, just trust me, it's my gut. And Jordy's like, yeah, let's just go with his gut. And so I just kind of feel like, I don't know. I was really looking at it critically, and that sensing part of it just kind of bothered me. I was struggling to kind of come up with the mechanism that would allow a synth to actually produce or feel feelings, and then another human-like species, being the Betazoid, actually sensing those. So,
yep, I get it. I totally hear what you're saying.
If Data did have something that was like, like Jack, where he was a transmitter and he could like push that stuff out, but like, as of yet, I don't think that, unless that was something that they were going to say he had evolved to have that ability, I just wasn't quite buying that whole part.
Right. I agree with you on that. I do.
So, yeah. So that was pretty much all my beefs, I guess.
That was all your beef. I think you might have had more beef than I did.
I did, but I think I did last time too.
So the student has become the master. That's good.
I was going to call past you, right?
I seduced you.
Partner of the pair, right?
I seduced you. Good.
You're not going to admit that.
Feel the anger. You're not smarter than me.
I am.
Nope.
Our brain damage is in different locations in the brain, so.
That's a stretch. That's a stretch. Okay, folks. So while Nico and I have a debate on who is smarter, and that's me, I am.
Last time you said I was the queen, right?
Did I say that?
Oh, yeah. You said I was the board queen.
Yes, I did. You're right.
I'm not cold.
I remember that. So thank you, board queen, for joining me on another outing for BigJ's Beef. And for anyone that's still listening to or watching us bickering like two little old ladies, thank you very much. And we're going to be doing this again. We're going to get more Star Trek in June, but who knows? We may have something to bitch about before then, between now and then. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to figure out why Nico thinks that she's smarter than me, because when I hear stuff like that, my first thought is, what the
Where's the beef?
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your years. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.